All right, welcome to another episode of The Fundable Founder. I'm here this morning with Jay Grayson, founder and CEO at Surround Insurance. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, Charlie, good morning.
It's good to see you again. Jay and I were just catching up. It's been over a year and a lot of amazing things are going on in his business. But, why don't we start? Why don't you give us your elevator pitch? What is Surround Insurance?
Yeah, so we like to say it's around reinventing insurance for modern life. And our model is business to consumer model. So when we're speaking with our insurance agency partners, we like to say we're providing independent agents with the digital tools and innovative new products they need to compete in a changing world. When we're speaking to consumers, what we're doing is we're helping them get started with insurance starter packs
Okay.
that feel designed for their lifestyles.
And what can you give an example of what an insurance starter pack is?
Yeah, so when you think about the way insurance over the last 100 years has evolved, it's created that you're creating these really tight product categories like auto insurance or apartment insurance or small business insurance. That's just not the way consumers think these days. They expect products that they purchase to reflect their lifestyles. So what we've done is we've taken the bits and bytes of insurance that we believe cover the parts of their living, working, and moving lives. And we make it really simple for them to piece together those coverages in a way that is more reflective of their lifestyle rather than a category or an asset that they've purchased.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And why don't we get into a little bit of the origin story behind this? I think it's interesting because you came from the industry. You worked for big insurance companies for a long time, right?
Yeah, I've spent 15 years in the insurance industry, as has my co-founder Kate, and we've worked in the belly of the beast of large insurance companies for many years. And we left because we were really thinking about what we could offer, what sort of our own sort of personal missions were to deliver a new kind of insurance idea. So where it came about is, Kate and I were spending a lot of time in Kendall Square pre-COVID. And, in Kendall at the Cambridge Innovation Center, they like to say they've got, more than 1,000 startups under one roof. So you just think about this hotbed of innovation colliding with technology companies, colliding with the campuses that are representative in Cambridge, MIT and Harvard among them. And you start to see some really interesting behaviors and patterns of what people are actually doing in the world, right? They're bike sharing, they're car sharing, they're home sharing, they're freelancing. And so Surround was really created through a bunch of consumer research, understanding what these consumers were doing, the kinds of risks that they were taking in the world, and the kinds of insurance that they really needed to have that peace of mind that insurance is known for. So for Kate and myself, it was really just get out in the world, understand what these consumers are doing, understand what their needs are, what their unsolved problems were. And then that was the result of what we've now formulated and built at Surround.
So what did you do? Just go around Kendall Square and interview people on the street?
Yeah. That's sometimes what you do. You stand by the blue bike station and you say, can you answer a few questions for me? Do you worry about being doored when you're riding a bike in the city? Have you ever experienced that? Do you have any friends?
Yeah.
And so you kind of get into the mindset of what this consumer is going through. It's posting to Slack channels at the Cambridge Innovation Center and saying, can I get 30 minutes of your time for an Amazon gift card? It's sending out surveys through SurveyMonkey and getting people to complete them. So it's just a lot of boots on the ground stuff that you just have to do to get into the mindset of your target consumer.
How many consumers did you get information from, do you think?
Yeah, we did lots of different research. So there were hundreds that we sent emails to have them complete our surveys. There are also a lot of first person research that we did. So those take time in order to schedule and spend an hour or half hour with different consumers. So, I mean, we did dozens of those interviews of people locally in the Boston area. And then we actually expanded our research into other cities, Chicago, New York, Portland, because we wanted to get a representative sample of what was happening around the United States.
That's great. And I can attest to you running around Kendall Square, because I think the last time I saw you, I bumped into you on the street and you were eating a burrito from Chipotle as you went between meetings or something. It was just you didn't even have time to sit down on the bench for 30 seconds to eat the burrito.
Those are fun. When you're pursuing ideas, those are the best times, right? Because basically the world is really open to you. You're thinking expansively, and so yeah, I imagine I was probably thinking about 20 things when I ran into you. But that was part of the lifestyle. Again, pre-COVID, things have changed a lot since then.
Right, and so you were launching a B2B to C business, which in and of itself is challenging. How did you and Kate think about doing the consumer research, finding insurance carriers to work with and other things, getting the product to a certain point where it's usable by the end consumer? How did you balance all of that with raising capital at the same time? Like, how do you think about putting those puzzle pieces together to get to a successfully funded business?
Yeah, so people talk about it as product market fit. We actually think of it as product market channel fit.
Okay.
Insurance is a $1.3 trillion category. There's lots of different ways that consumers buy. Most of the billions of dollars of investment that's gone into InsurTech over the last 5 to 10 years has been directed at direct consumer acquisition strategies or back office. We have not seen a lot of investment in a channel called independent agency and brokerage. That's where your intermediaries distribute your product. And yet that still represents about 50% of the $1.3 trillion market. So when it comes to matching, the way consumers want to buy and where we saw opportunities, it was our experience that really kind of brought us to the channel of independent agents and brokers. We felt like that was they were underrepresented. And quite honestly, they see that there's been so much investment that they need to make investments to compete against these companies and these investments. So we found a bunch of local agencies we did research with as well that saw the opportunity with these consumers and wanted to partner with us in order to distribute our products. So some of it was expertise and knowing that there was a missed opportunity by venture capitalists and going after that channel. Some of it was just going in and researching, making sure that we could design our experience for those agencies in a way that consumers want to buy. And then, so that got us to the product market channel fit that you see today. Now, in terms of constructing the investor base, it's definitely one of those things you want to be thoughtful about. You don't just want to take money from anyone, because if your investor base has a philosophy around direct to consumer and you're going down a B2B to C route, your meetings, your board meetings, your advisor meetings are going to be one where you're constantly, splitting your resources. So what we've done is we've managed to find investors that already saw the problem that we were trying to solve for this consumer. So that was easy. So these were insurance investors.
Okay.
Almost all of our funding has been from insurance funds or insurance executives.
Right.
So they understood the problem that we were trying to solve. And then the second piece was, in terms of strategy, is that investor sort of aligned with where you're trying to go? It's not necessarily the tactics. You can disagree on the tactics, but I think if you have a difference in agreement in the North Star of what you're trying to achieve 3 to 5 years from now, you're really going to run into a bunch of issues. So being thoughtful about constructing the cap table, the investor base, who you want to work with is important. It's hard to do. If somebody's gonna write you a check, it's hard to say no. Right. But it really is important to understand where that investor is coming from and anticipate what you're likely to have for conversations with them and where you're going to get value from them later on after you've taken the money. Yeah,
that's a great point. And let's kind of go back to that capital raise. Did you have a strategy of doing like pre-seed with high net worth insurance executives, followed by a seed round led by VCs later? Was that?
Yeah, I feel like, I remember being in the position, maybe some of the viewers, of not sort of looking to the people that had successfully come before me and figuring out like it all theoretically sounds right when they tell you a story, but I can tell you now, having gone through it, It is a very messy business of raising capital, and I am certainly not one of the great fundraisers out there. I do think we've done a great job piecing together over time what we've managed to raise, and we've raised about 2.5 million to date.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, but it didn't all come in one opportunity. To your point, I think that you're making, and to the entrepreneurs out there, for us, it was really more of a step function to that raise. So we had the early believers that provided us with a few $100,000 of capital that allowed us to build a prototype. That prototype then led to us being able to convince some new investors to come in to help us fund the next wave, which was to actually build the product and begin to attract insurance partners. So, we raised about $750,000 at that point. That got us to $1 million total, which then began to convince, we got to hire our first employees. We began to build our actual product, lay down some code. We won some awards and recognition. And then from there, we attracted some partners that then saw the product that we were actually building. So then attracting those partners allowed us to sign some contracts, which then allowed us to sign and raise money from institutions at that point. So that's where the next additional $1.5 million came from, was the proof points of those contracts allowed us to raise the capital that got us to the point that we are today, and also allowed us to launch. So your cap table tells a story. It tells you roughly your history of how you got there.
That's a good way to think of it.
You really need to, as I said, being thoughtful about the investors you bring on. But your cap table sort of is reflective of the kind of journey that you've been on to get there. Some cap tables are a big bang. You get your $3 to $5 million seed check and go run. For us, we've been very capital efficient and thoughtful about the way we've raised, and it's happened in step functions. And we've gotten people on board at different phases. And so, we'll be raising sometime later this year on the proof points that we now have a product in the market and some customers to speak of.
That's great. So did you participate in any accelerators or any programs that really helped you along the way?
Yeah, they were really important part of validating us while we were still a PowerPoint. We were part of Mass Challenge FinTech. We were fortunate enough to win the Platinum Award. We had partnered with Mass Mutual, who's a large life insurance company in Massachusetts. They saw our product vision around designing around a lifestyle and designing around consumers and what they were doing in the world. So we were fortunate to have Mass Mutual select us, and for us to have to win an award with Mass Challenge. That brought a lot of legitimacy to our business. DCU FinTech Innovation Center. DCU's got 300,000 millennial customers in the New England region. We learned a lot from DCU and how they interact with those customers in the marketing. Again, a really important piece. Plug and Play on the West Coast, their InsurTech practice. We were a participant in their accelerator just to gain some corporate partnerships. We actually generated some revenue out of a pilot with Plug and Play on the West Coast.
That's great.
And then the Harvard Innovation Labs. So my co-founder, Kate, is an alum, and we were fortunate enough to get into that program in the 2019-2020 period. And that was just wonderful to be a part of a class of 13 startups and going through the same stage of the journey, all at the same time, sharing a lot of stories and with entrepreneurs in the community as well.
That's great. So I didn't realize you did all those programs.
That was very early. We needed those programs to really help us get accelerated. The last one was Harvard Innovation Labs early last year.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and all those programs help with, you get a lot of mentors who kind of provide advice along the way, a lot of introductions. It just builds your network, helps you with your pitch. And in Plug and Play's case, they introduce you to some customers, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. We've been very fortunate receivers of the ecosystem. So we do everything we can to give back when we're asked to participate in panels or talk to potential partners, corporate partners. We're always there to help and put something back into the ecosystem as well.
When it came to your institutional raise, was there any kind of like aha moment where you're like, I think my pitch is starting to resonate with these VCs, and was there something that, you did or the way you kind of structured your pitch that all of a sudden helped people get it?
Yeah, one in particular, Harvard Innovation Labs actually had VCs come in and evaluate your pitch in a sort of a Shark Tank method. So I think not getting feedback on our own pitch, in addition to hearing other companies pitch, was incredibly helpful. There is absolutely something to be said for honing the pitch and really thinking about the messages that resonate. We definitely tweaked our message a lot. And, one of the things that I didn't understand, but I do now, is if you're getting started, that elevator, people talk about the elevator pitch, but you really need to have that nailed in terms of the message that you're trying to deliver. If you're not getting head nods with what you're saying immediately, you need to keep working on it, because people need to feel that problem that you're trying to solve, or that value that you're trying to create for the consumer.
Yeah, and
so
I think
I'd highly recommend that the people out there make sure they nail that first.
Yeah, and when you're doing, kind of some friendly pitches with getting some feedback, some friendly feedback, is, ask that question of, did you understand what I was saying in the first minute, right? Did you get the elevator pitch, or what am I missing? It's especially true nowadays on Zoom, right? Like, people are pitching, we're not in the same room, so it's real easy for the investor to zone out and start answering emails and texting a minute into your pitch, right? Whereas if we're at least in the same conference room, they got to pay attention for 10 minutes, right? But nowadays, that first 30 seconds or minute is critical to getting them hooked, or they're on to something else, because we're all getting bombarded with emails and texts and Slacks and everything all day long.
It absolutely is. Distractions, definitely one of those things. We all seek out novelty. So the moment that a pitch is not novel anymore, there are many other distractions that do provide that sort of hit of dopamine. So yeah, we have been fortunate to answer your previous question, that our most recent fundraising were existing investors that already understood the story. So we didn't have to do too much in terms of the pitch. I don't know how much we're going to have to adapt to this Zoom environment right now, but absolutely, you've got to capture interest early, and you've got to be able to frame things in a way, whether it's through your slides or your data, or it's your story. Those things need to be practiced. Great speakers. I've known some great speakers in my lifetime, and as I've asked them and try to learn from them, how do you deliver that great talk, great speech? They practice a lot. You both know the Allen Iverson, talking about practice meme, but like, practice is absolutely critical to capture that attention and capture that investor's imagination on what this could be, because that is really all you have at this moment as an entrepreneur, is capturing that imagination and then selling that vision of where you're trying to take the company, and ultimately how you're going to de-risk that investor's investment and return capital. That is ultimately what they're listening for, is how are you reducing the level of risk for me, and how are you going to return multiples of capital to me? It's not just about the idea and the product. Don't get so enamored with that. It really is about how people are going to make money, and how you're going to make the world a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And, you got to sell that vision. You got to sell that you're the team that's going to be able to achieve that vision. And here's kind of how you're going to go about de-risking the business per your advice. And, that's just the first meeting, right? That's what's required in the first half hour in order to get the VC to take a second meeting and really start to understand, the details of your business. So I think that's tremendous advice. Any other words of wisdom, anything you left out that you'd like to pass along to the aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Kate and I like to say the work is the work. And so, it's one thing, if you do nothing, the world is not waiting for you. The world is moving on. And so, we like to say the work is the work. And as you think about your progress very early in the journey, it may not feel like you're making a lot of movement. You haven't made a lot of impact, but continuing to advance the idea, to build around it. I used to use the idea of like, you're capturing a bunch of snowflakes, and eventually you're collecting it, and it's a large enough thing that it looks like a snowball. And that snowball effect, you begin to feel, and you feel it through employees joining on, investors joining on, customers beginning to come on board, partner agreements being signed. But it takes time, and you have to do the work to begin to see the advancement. It's very, very incremental at first. And so you have to keep at it, because it's very, very easy to either convince yourself you've done something that's actually advancing the business when it's not,
Yeah.
or to be more of a wantrepreneur and not putting stuff out there when you need to do the work.
That's
So
true.
I'd recommend make sure that you're constantly checking yourself there.
That's great. And so we are out of time, but I like to finish by asking one final question, and that's, how would you describe yourself in one word?
Persistent.
Persistent.
Yes.
I think that's very accurate. Well, thank you so much for being on the Fundable Founder today, Jay. I'm very pleased to hear all the success you've had and building that snowball one snowflake at a time. You've done a great job, and I look forward to seeing what Surround Insurance will accomplish over the coming years.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
To innovate, invent, and disrupt? We're your partner to fuel your growth. Contact us to learn more.